Good afternoon, everyone. How are we today? We have a number of you joining us from India, I think, is the main area where we're all from today. Can you all hear me? No, just nod or wave?
Yes, sir. We're hearing. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I was just waiting for, I think, a few more to join. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself while we wait. My name is, I go by Dave. My full handle is David Lyons. I'm from England, and I was a lawyer in England for many years before moving to Thailand. I was a solicitor of the Supreme Court of England for over 20 years. And here I've been an IELTS writer and educator for many years, also over 10 years now. So I examine the IELTS test in Bangkok and also write materials. And I've got many sort of students that we teach both face-to-face and online here in Bangkok. Right, so this seminar today, this webinar today, is the secrets for maxing your IELTS band score. So the first point to make is, let's not use any slang words because, as you probably know, maxing is not a real word. So we don't really want to use that. It's a promotional word that we use for this. So what does this mean, secrets for maxing our score? Well, basically, there are many students who don't really get the score that they want or the score that they need. And some of the time, this is not always because of their English ability lacking in that. It's more to do with the lack of technique on knowing exactly how to deal with the test, the strategies that we need for each part of the test, and how to get the most marks out of that part. So a key thing to this is trying to understand what the examiner needs from you in order to give you that high score. If you know that, you can do your very best to give the examiner exactly that. Give him or her what he or she needs in order to give you the high score. Now, let's define a high score for the purpose of this webinar. We're talking about a score that is 7 or above, so 7.5 or above, something like that is what we mean by a high score for the purposes of this particular webinar. Now, we haven't got very long today, so we're just going to look at some key areas, some key secrets where you can get a few more marks in each part. So if we get a few more marks for each part, then it can all add up to improving your score dramatically. Now, as we know, there are 4 skills in IELTS, 4 parts of the test, which are the listening, reading, writing, and speaking parts, which we take in that order. The writing and the speaking are graded by an examiner. The listening and the reading are given a mark out of 40. The 40 question, you get a mark out of 40, and then we scale that to the band score. And that is generally done by administration people, admin staff in the various test centers. So again, we have to know exactly what they need to be able to mark your answer as correct. So we'll start with, let me just get this on the full screen for you. So we'll start with a little bit on listening and reading. Now, when we get to the level of being able to get a 7.5 plus score, the listening and the reading are hopefully a little bit easier. Many students lower down that food chain tend to find these parts difficult. So we'll spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes on listening and reading, and then we'll go on to looking at vocabulary and speaking and writing and some key areas where we can maximize our band score for those. Right, so firstly, on our listening and reading, to get 7.5, we need to score 33 correct answers out of 40. So that doesn't leave you very much margin for error. You know, we have to get more than 8 out of 10 correct to get 7.5. 30 correct answers will give you band 7. Now, in the listening test, one reason why some students lose marks is because they are listening for words that are the same words as those that they see on the question sheet. If you see the same words as you hear, this is almost never the right answer. The right answer will be a paraphrase of the question and what you see on the question sheet. So never put the answer, see what you hear. We don't want to do that. To think of the paraphrasing words that have the same meanings. Now, another reason for losing marks is the grammar. Now, we might think the grammar is not very important for the listening and reading, and it's more for the writing and the speaking. But our answers, or most of our answers, still need to be grammatically correct. And one area that is a major issue that leads to a number of mistakes and lost marks are plural nouns. Now, this is more for students or candidates who are from countries where their language is tonal, like in Thailand here, the Thai language, or Mandarin, Cantonese, where there is no plural noun in your language. I'm not really sure about Indian languages and dialects, whether you have a plural noun or not in some or most of those. So again, get your clue from the question statement. If you see words that indicate a plural noun, words like some or many, or if the verb in the question is in the plural form, then clearly your noun will need to be a plural noun. And the biggest clue is whether you see a or an before the space, then you will definitely need a singular noun. If you don't see a or an, then as a general rule, you should be looking to write the plural noun as your answer. Now then, let's move on to the reading. Now in reading, one thing we need to understand here is that you get 1 mark for each question out of the 40. There are no more marks for a hard question. If you get a really, really hard question, and many students will say that the hardest question types are the matching headings in passage 2, or the yes, no, not given ID questions in passage 3, you don't get extra marks for getting these ones right. So what do we learn from that? Well, we have to get most of the easy ones right. That's the key. So let's concentrate on getting as many of those right as possible. And so that's the point we're going to focus on in this webinar as far as the reading is concerned. And that is looking at the technique for gap fill questions. Now we have 5 or 6 different question types that ask us to fill a space in the question wording or in a summary or a sentence with words that you find from the reading passage. And that's what we call gap fill. We have to fill that gap with the right words. So we're going to just look at that. Bear with me 1 second, because I now need to put something else on your screen for you and share the text of an exercise. So I'm hoping that you can now all see both of the enclosures now, both of the documents on your screen. And one is a short text from for the reading with 3 questions at the bottom, 3 gap fill questions at the bottom of that. And highlighted in yellow and blue and purple respectively are the relevant pieces you need to read for questions 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to look at exactly how we find our answers for these and how we avoid putting the wrong answer for these types of questions. The important things in the question statement are what comes before and after the space. These are the key things. We need to get as much as we can from the language that you actually see in the question, because this will determine what type of word that we need for our answer. Now, let's look at the first. I'm actually going to look at question 2 first. And I'm just doing question 2 first in case we run out of time, because I want to get through the writing and the speaking points as well. So this gap fill question number 2, it tells us that there is a chill zone for something such as magazines, books, and DVDs. Now, firstly, we will easily find the words chill zone because they're in quotation marks, so we know those are directly from the passage, and we can find them. And we can see the text tells us that immediately to the left in a typical supermarket layout is another familiar site, the chill zone for browsing magazines, books. So that's what we read in the text. Now then, many candidates put browsing as the answer for this. This is a training sort of model that I use in my classrooms. And I would say more than 50% of students put browsing as the answer, but this is not correct. And why is it not correct? Well, if we look at the structure of the clause, we have for a preposition plus a gerund browsing plus a noun. Now, you will probably know that when we have a verb that follows a preposition, it's in the gerund form. So far, so good. But we then look at the words after that in the question statement, and we have the words such as. And this is very important also, because such as indicates that we are identifying some examples. So magazines, books, and DVDs are examples of whatever the word is that we need for our answer. So we need a general noun here. We can't have a verb. It needs to be a general noun that we need for our answer, of which magazines, books, and DVDs can be examples. So what we have to do is to keep reading here. The next sentence tells us this is to tempt impromptu purchases and slow customers down. Now, this leads us to the next point, that again, many students put purchases as the answer, and this is also incorrect. Many put that as the answer because they don't know what this word impromptu means. Unplanned. Now, if it's not the answer, if you don't understand that word, does that mean it's not the answer? No, of course not. It can still be your answer. And so what this basically says is that when people go to the supermarket, they're going to buy their groceries and stuff like that, distracted by this chill zone, books and magazines, they go over there, they don't plan to buy anything like that, but they are tempted to do so. So our answer needs to be impromptu purchases. Okay, so that is how we make sure we get the right answers from the passage. We look at the words before and after the space, and we look at the structure of the clauses or the sentence, so we know exactly what the things would be. Now let's just go back and think, if browsing was our answer for this, we would need a general noun like items or products or things. And that would also have to be in our question statement, but we don't see it here. We just see such as. So again, another reason why we can't have browsing, it must be something else, and it's the general noun in the following sentence. Okay, right. Now, we will come back to the reading if we have time at the end, because I just want to skip through a couple of slides now and get on to our next point. So our next point here is fancy vocabulary, yes or no? So what does fancy vocabulary mean? Okay, right, our vocabulary score, and this is really important, as you probably know, for our writing and our speaking. In each of those two parts of the test, you get 25% of the marks for your lexical resource. This is basically your vocabulary, and your score depends upon the variety of the words you use, the adequacy and appropriacy of those words, and your ability to paraphrase. A big mistake made by many candidates for the IELTS test is to concentrate on only the variety of the words without looking at the appropriacy. So we get really big scores for that. Okay, now then, in the grading, this is in where we see this firstly in band 7 in the grading for our speaking and writing. The vocabulary tells us that use some less common and idiomatic vocabulary and even more importantly, shows awareness of style and collocation. Collocation means a combination of words. So using words together as a native speaker would. Now these can be adjective plus noun combinations, it can be a verb plus a noun, it can be a verb and adverb, it can be a parallel structure, so adjective, adjective plus adjective, and so on. Lots of different combinations we can have, but it's being able to join these words together successfully, fluently, in the manner of a native speaker. And that's really where we get the value in our vocabulary score. That's one of the really key things. Now, I have many of my students here who ask me about vocabulary. They'll tell me that I think my vocabulary is weak. I found some word lists on a website. Should I memorize all of these long words and try and use these? And the answer is absolutely not. This is a way to lower your score. You're trying to use complicated, fancy words, multi-syllable words that you don't fully understand is the way to lower your score for lexical resource. If what you say has an unclear meaning, so if you choose the wrong word which might convey a different meaning from that you intend, well, this is a band 5 error. Too many of these types of errors, too many words that are inappropriate, will result in your vocabulary score being below 6, and that will seriously affect your overall speaking and therefore your overall score, speaking and writing, and therefore your overall band score. So don't try and learn long lists of words that you don't fully understand. Use words that are within your comprehension, that you fully understand them, you know synonyms and antonyms for them, and most importantly, you can use them in the correct contexts in sentences. Once you can do that, this is the type of words that we want to be using. Okay? Wrong word choices that render meaning unclear is an absolute no-no. This will seriously lower your score. Okay, now here's a little example from a speaking question. So look at this part 3 speaking question. Should people pay to visit attractions like art galleries and museums, or should they be free? And we have a sample answer here on the screen that you can see and read. Now, try and read it as I keep going with you. Now, look at this answer here. There are not many words in there, I suspect, that you don't understand. Okay, we've got here, I mean, most of I think will know the words historical, cultural, significance. These are not really difficult words, but if we put them together like this, some places have cultural or historical significance. This is what adds the value. It's the combination of the words in that collocation that adds the value to your vocabulary score for the speaking, and this is what will get you that score to 7.5. It's by being able to combine all of these words together. And in this answer, we've got costs of staff and maintenance. We have reasonable to ask visitors, especially tourists. We've got pay an admission charge. Fee to get in, which is a paraphrase of admission charge, might be inappropriate. Ruined temple. Should be subsidized, free to attend. All of these combinations of words are what is really attracting the examiner to your answer here. This is what's getting you that really high vocabulary marks for this type of answer. Okay, so try and, as I say, try and use words that we really fully understand, and we can use them in this way. We can combine them with other words to make really good collocations. And this is what will vastly improve and get you the high score that we deserve. Right, some other speaking tips here. Many candidates go into this test thinking that if they get the right topic, they will do well. If they don't get the right topic, they won't do very well. So the key to a really high speaking score is to take away this dependency on the topic. And so what we need to do in order to do that is to learn the correct structure for your part 2 long talk. Also learn some strategies to extend that talk and to how to vary the language within it. And for part 3, which is often the most difficult part of the test, is to be able to identify each of the question types. There's only 6 of them, so we need to be able to identify each one and learn the very best strategy for answering each of them. Once you know all of that, well, then we can go into the test in a very confident manner, and we're no longer dependent upon what the topic is, because we can kill it regardless of what it is. So that is the main things we need to get from this speaking. Okay, now some similar tips on our writing. First point to note, task 2 is easier than task 1. Really, it is. Many students don't agree with me at the beginning of a course, but they nearly always agree with me by the end. So task 2 is easier and it is worth more marks. So the main thing we want to do is to learn how to write a fully developed answer in 35 minutes. For the ideas for your task 2 essay, it's the quality of the idea and not the quantity that counts. We don't want a long list of ideas that are not fully explained. That's a disaster. That's a band 5 answer. And when we say quality of the idea, that doesn't mean that you have to prove yourself to be a Nobel Prize winner with the amazing idea that you have for this particular problem. And it doesn't mean that you have to have something that the examiner will agree with. That doesn't matter either, because you're not being tested on the actual idea. You're being tested on your ability to explain it using good English. Now, our grading criteria here in band 7 and band 8 tells us that we need to present, extend, and support relevant ideas. If you have a lot of ideas which you don't fully explain, this is presenting, but it's not extending or supporting. So what we need to do is to extend our answers by giving reasons why and supporting those reasons with examples from your own knowledge or experience. The question wording actually tells you to do that. We should also show the result of those examples in practice, which will usually conclude your paragraph and get you back to the original idea, the reason why you have this idea in the first place. So using this compact paragraph building strategy means that you will fully explain your idea. You will write about 5 sentences. It will also be easier then to connect everything together, which will improve your coherence and cohesion score. And of course, it will give you the opportunity to use very good language in both the grammar and vocabulary to increase those scores as well. So that is the main takeaway in terms of our writing. It's to concentrate on the paragraph building of your task 2 essay. Again, identifying the question types and how's the best way to answer each of them. There's only 4 different types of essay that we get in task 2 writing, and about 50% of the time we will get agree or disagree. So knowing how we can write in that manner, how we can fully evaluate both sides of an argument, this is where we're getting the really high scores in the writing, the 7.5 and above. Okay, so there we are with our writing. Now, we do have some time for some questions. If you want to ask a question, can I ask you please to just write it in the chat box, and I'll take as many as we can before the end. Now, I just want to tell you now about what we do here at Red Fox in terms of our IELTS training. This is the first of our webinar program. We're looking to roll out a full series of webinars over the coming weeks. So we're holding 1 or 2 webinars each week. Some of them will be like this one, so it'll be free for about 30 minutes. And some will be longer where you have to pay a small fee for. And of course, those ones will be more in depth. We also have a number of other products and lessons that you can take online. We have self-study online products that you can buy from the company. And we have a range of different courses that you can take with online tutors for depending on your level, beginner, intermediate, and advanced courses. You can take an assessment so that we can place you in the right course for you. And we support you all the way through with mock tests and feedback and further assessments. So we do provide you with a very, very full service, a cradle to grave service, from starting your IELTS training right through to passing your exam with the right score at the end. Right, okay, we have a few minutes left. Has anyone sent me a question yet? Nobody yet, okay. Right, well, let's go back to the reading. I've got a chance now to just finish off a couple of these points. So, the first question says, decompression zone 4, blank space, not sales. Now again, we can find the relevant part of the text quite easily. We've got the area immediately inside the entrance of a supermarket is known as the decompression zone. People need to slow down and take stock of their surroundings. Now, typical wrong answers here are slow down, take stock, and later in the passage, bargains. The first of these, second of these are both phrasal verbs. So slow down, take stock, these are phrasal verbs. We would need to before them. We don't see this preposition to, we see for in the question. So these can't be the right answer. So it's the same point as before. We have something, not sales. Well, sales is a noun. So it needs to be another noun because this is a parallel structure. So where do we find there? We have to keep reading again. And then we get sales are not really expected here. So the space tends to be used more for promotion. And that's what gives us our correct answer. The answer is promotion. And the third question that we have for you here. Counters selling something are positioned opposite the entrance. Now, this question is all about correctly interpreting the paraphrasing. So when we look at the text, it tells us that we keep walking ahead and the first thing we come to is the fresh fruit and vegetables section. So we have to look at exactly what it says. It told us before this, if you remember from question 2, you go into the supermarket and off to the left is the chill zone. Well, if you don't go off to the left, what is going to be in front of you when you walk in? It's going to be opposite the entrance because the entrance is going to be behind you. So there we get fresh fruit and vegetables section. Now, we can use 3 words from these 5 words. Clearly the answer is fruit and vegetables. I'm sure you'll get that right. But back to the point we made right at the beginning, vegetables is in the plural. If you write a singular noun here, we won't get the point. If you include the adjective fresh in here, we won't get the point because we will write more than 3 words. So we just need to write fruit and vegetables. All right. A further point I get a lot here is being asked that if we have a noun, like in the, let's go back to this first one, impromptu purchases. If we have a noun here, we've got impromptu as an adjective and purchases is the noun. So if I just write the noun, will that be the answer? Well, sometimes you'll be okay. Sometimes the noun is the important word. Well, the noun is always the important word, but it really depends on the construction of the clause or sentence and the meaning of that it wants to convey. Sometimes we actually need the adjective plus the noun for it to make sense. It needs to be more specific than just the noun. Sometimes you'll get it, sometimes it won't be right. So my advice would be put the adjective and the noun, because normally in these cases, you either definitely need the adjective and you won't get the point without it, or the answer key that the admin staff will use to grade your paper will have the adjective as an option that you can use. You need the noun to get the right point, to get the point. But if you put the adjective with the noun, you will still get the point. So we should usually put the adjective plus the noun in these cases. So there's another tip for you when we're looking at trying to max our reading scores with these gap fill questions. Now, you will get a gap fill set of questions almost certainly in passage 1, sometimes 2 sets. And we often will get a summary to complete or sentences to complete, which are both of those are a little bit more difficult than completing notes or tables or flowcharts. But we often get another set like that, a summary or sentences in passage 2 or passage 3. So we can end up with 3 sets of questions, 10 to 15 questions, which are like this. So if we want to max out these ones, get 9 out of 10 of these right, you might already have 10 points, 12 points, 14 points in the bag. And of course, that's a long way to getting that's a big way towards that target of 30 for band 7 or 33 for band 7.5. So it's a long way to actually getting you the band score that you need and you deserve. So concentrate on getting these easier questions right, and then trying your very best at getting all of the hard ones right as well. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Do we have any questions at all that someone would like to ask before we leave? So again, I still haven't got any of you writing anything in the chat box for me. Never mind. Okay, very good. Right. So I hope you've all enjoyed our webinar today. I hope you picked up some good points from it. Now, obviously, our longer webinars and our courses and classes go into much more detail than I can fit into a 30-minute general session like this. Most of our courses, they concentrate on these questions of trying to get as many marks as we possibly can. Okay. Now, what I can guarantee you also, if you sign up for a course with us, is that all of the teachers that we use are experts in their field. So you will get an expert in IELTS teaching you IELTS. And the materials that you will get have been written by an IELTS expert. Yes, you're right. It is me. So again, we can guarantee you that the materials are spot on in terms of the test. They are reflective exactly of the types of questions you will get in the text. You get lots of practice materials. So I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, and we look forward to receiving you and helping you as much as possible at Red Fox Education. Thank you for watching. Thank you for taking part. Bye for now.